Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. In this video, we're going to be watching as Liquid Doublelift plays Xayah with a Rakan support against Jinx and Braum. In this lane, Doublelift has a damage advantage with his W and Rakan's buff, which will mean that he wins trades as well as damage on the wave. As we break down the laning phase, we're going to focus specifically on the ways that he's able to get lane priority and leverage it, while, as always, isolating concepts that you can apply in your own games. With that all said, there's a few missions that Doublelift will want to accomplish. First, he'll want to look for any openings to all in with Rakan at level 1. Jinx is good at last hitting under turret, so he'll want to freeze whenever possible, and to freeze, he'll have to force Jinx to use rockets on the wave. To force Jinx to use her rockets, Doublelift will have to zone her from minigun range, which he will be able to do by threatening a Rakan all-in whenever there's a summoner or health advantage. And then the rockets will cause Jinx to do damage on the wave, which is going to make a freeze possible. With that all said, let's hop right into the game. Right off the bat, we see that Xayah and Rakan have gotten Kai'Sa to start topside so that they can try and cheese, or at minimum have priority on the minion wave. Kai'Sa may also be starting topside to counter a possible level 2 invade from Lee Sin, because they will often invade the red buff after one camp. As the minion wave spawns, we see Braum and Jinx show up in lane, signaling that Lee is either soloing a camp or starting on topside. To their own credit, Braum and Jinx seem to be sniffing this out, and Jinx is standing far away from the brush by the wall, though she does move a bit closer and is then in range to support Braum as he face checks the brush. However, Jinx has moved just a bit too close and is going to take a W from Rakan. While it may seem like this isn't too dangerous, Jinx absolutely has to flash this W. Here, we'll show you exactly why. So Jinx ends up having to flash anyways, and she barely gets out alive. This is really bad for her, and she's definitely going to have to recall here. Otherwise, she'll lose even more than she already has. With a quick note on item builds, both marksmen opted into Doran's Blade, which makes sense for Xayah, but doesn't really make sense for Jinx since she's weaker in the laning phase. Anyway, Jinx doesn't back, which is terrible. If this happens to you, first off, make sure you flash, but if you don't flash, make sure you recall afterwards. The reason being is that the follow-up flash all-in from Rakan is going to be too easy to land on the flashless Jinx, and Braum won't be able to do anything at level 1 to stop it. Seriously, this is so bad. Look at how far back she has to play just because of the threat of both of them merely flash autoing her. While the XP is good, it just isn't worth it for her to be sticking around here. As a support, a great time to engage is when the enemy AD carry is committing to an auto attack to last hit a low minion. This is for two reasons. First, their champion is tied to that auto attack animation for the duration that it's happening. And second, their focus, at least briefly, is on killing that minion, which means that they're going to lose some reaction time speed to your engage. And this is exactly what Rakan was relying on. Even though Jinx was on high alert, you simply cannot dodge your way out of this. All Doublelift has to do here is follow up with his own flash, and they are immediately able to punish and kill Jinx for sticking around. After bodying the Jinx, they shove in the next two waves and recall, where Doublelift resets for a Cull, Boots, Control Ward, and 2 Potion. As he gets back into the lane, the wave is just barely in an unfortunate spot. He would have loved to freeze this here, but the wave is actually too close to the turret for the freeze to be maintained. The reason it's suboptimal here is that the incoming melees will end up getting hit by the turret. He couldn't do anything to fix this, but for reference, the sweet spot would have been around where this arrowhead is on the ground. Anyhow, the new blue melees come into turret range and then die, and Doublelift has a wave pushing towards the enemy turret. However, if Jinx steps too far up at all, she can then be all-in once again. Jinx steps up while Doublelift wards, but Taliyah is also in the river. In this case, if they can call the play from Jinx fast enough, they can kill her and possibly turn on Taliyah or run away. Unfortunately, Lee Sin ward hops from behind Doublelift's turret, and what we had instead of a 2v3 outplay was a 2v4 bot lane dive fiesta, which resulted in Doublelift and Rakan both dying in trade for Jinx. Off screen, Braum is now frozen the wave at this turret, and we're going to see Jinx equalize her farm disadvantage. However, Jinx is still down in items, with Doublelift having 2 longswords to her dagger. Factoring in the damage advantage innate in their matchup, Doublelift is going to wreck Jinx in trades, and all-ins still majorly favor him. Even though his mission to freeze and zone Jinx has been delayed by the 4-man gank, he still has plenty of opportunity to do so because Jinx has been slowed down even more. We see Doublelift then do something sweet to set this up as well. Some of you might know this, but you can set up a freeze by dragging enemy minions by aggroing them and stacking them up a bit before darting into the brush just like this. This causes them to focus fire the first minion of your wave, which can oftentimes equalize the damage that you do with your last hits, which will allow you to freeze the wave in the middle of the lane and zone your opponent out like Doublelift is doing here. The huge benefit to freezing like this against Jinx specifically is that she has to contest the wave with her rocket form, like we mentioned in the missions. This means that she's going to then hit the other minions, and it's going to push. Because that's happening, she's going to naturally push the wave into you and make the problem even worse for herself, or otherwise open herself up to be all in. In addition, though you can't see it on the screen, both of Jinx's summoner spells are still down for the next 30 seconds, and Rakan's Ignite is now back up. This is all coinciding perfectly with forcing Jinx to make the lose-lose call of either putting herself in threat range or deciding to call it off and recall. She decides to stay, and Rakan goes for a WQ onto Jinx before backing out. Doublelift tries to follow up, but he's blocked by Brahm's shield. While they held off the all-in for now, Jinx still lost a ton of health from that trade. And what makes this amazing is that the wave is still pushing towards Doublelift, which is only going to accentuate the problems that Jinx is facing. However, as Doublelift is zoning and setting this freeze up, we see Braum move forward aggressively. This tells us a lot by itself, but we know this is for a gank because we can see Lee Sin on the minimap from vision coverage placed earlier by Xayah and Rakan. Even though Kai'Sa is nearby, we don't have to fight this, and we really lose nothing by backing off, and this is because the wave is going to push towards us anyways. Ideally, Doublelift and Rakan would remove junglers from the situation, since there's an existing advantage for them in the 2v2 that they are actively exploiting. However, this is solo queue, so they keep going in for the fight, even though Lee Sin is level 6 to Kai'Sa's level 5. The blue team ends up making a lot of execution mistakes, which leads to this aggressive coordination by the red team to pay off. We don't really support the decision making that got him here, but this does show the advantages you can have by playing more confidently and together as a team. When it all pounds out, Doublelift shoves the next two waves into Jinx's turret and sticks around to make sure that he can pick up gold for his BF sword. However, he sees that Jinx didn't recall either, which means there's no pressure on him to push. Relative to Jinx, Doublelift has a big item lead, which means that he can retain control and priority over the lane until Braum gets back. What's even better about this play is that by keeping it frozen here, he's forcing Jinx to make a call. Will Doublelift decide to push it fast, or will he keep it frozen? In the end, the most likely call is that Jinx will recall, because if he keeps it frozen, then she'll lose out a ton if she stays, but can at least contest it if she resets. As Rakan returns, Double hard shoves the wave, and they're able to rotate into the river to pick up what looks to be a free Infernal Drake. This is excellent map movement and play with this jungler, since Jinx will have to deal with the big wave, and Braum is currently dealing with holding the wave for her, meaning that the only two people that can contest this are Lee Sin and Taliyah. To defend against Lee Sin, they pull the Drake out, and with that, they've already done a ton to mitigate any counterplay. Overall, this was great because even though Lee Sin was actually here and ready to contest, he wasn't able to get anything done. Anyhow, as Doublelift resets and heads back to the lane, Rakan gets caught freezing the wave and has to burn his ultimate and flash in return for Braum's ult. However, as Doublelift heads back into the lane, Kai'Sa is waiting in the wings to punish Jinx and Braum for being this far up in lane. Rakan is able to start things off by hitting an awesome W with a quick follow-up from Doublelift and Kai'Sa. And finally, after some brief trolling in the river by Yasuo, they're able to finally kill the tier 1 turret bot, with Doublelift having a 1000 gold lead over Jinx right after the 10-minute mark. He wins the game at 20 minutes, but that's not what this is about. The big thing to pull out of this game is that Doublelift didn't do anything spectacular to get his lead. He was able to extend the lead from level 1 Cheese in a few ways that resulted in him having constant lane control and rotation priority over Jinx. After he was able to get a level 1 health advantage, he zoned Jinx out and punished her with Rakan as she went in for CS. At that point, he was ahead of her in the tempo of the game. Even though he was set back by a level 4 gank, he hit level ups earlier, pushed waves faster, and was at fights first with more gold. Well, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.